The Venezuelan government denounced an attempted false flag operation by the U.S. DEA agency to justify its ongoing aggression against the Bolivarian nation. In Cuba, Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla presented the yearly report on the impact of the U.S. blockade. And in Palestine, at least 45 Palestinians, including 23 from Gaza City, were killed and others were injured in the ongoing Israeli shelling of the Gaza Strip. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. This Wednesday, Venezuelan Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello denounced an attempted false flag operation by the U.S. DEA agency to justify its ongoing aggression against the Bolivarian nation. The Minister of Interior, Justice and Peace reported that over 3,600 kilograms of cocaine were seized during the operation, in which 4 people with Venezuelan identity cards were detained carrying no weapons. The Venezuelan investigation revealed, thanks to the boat's GPS data, that the vessel was traveling with 4 overboard engines and had left from Colombia, entered Venezuelan waters to then go north and be intercepted by the U.S. and used it as justification in its military aspirations across the Caribbean. Diosdado Cabello also reiterated Venezuela's commitment to face drug trafficking, adding that so far this year they have seized 60 tons of drugs in anti-drug operations.
I am saying this with full knowledge of the facts. And let me make this very clear. Levy, Enrique Lopez Baudiz, is a DEA agent and a drug trafficker, and against Venezuela. This was going to be part of a false flag operation. 4 citizens were arrested. Venezuelan fishermen know that when they go out to work, they do not take their ID cards or anything else with them. How strange that these 4 citizens had their ID cards there, ready to be handed over. That boat with drugs was a false flag operation by the DEA to accuse Venezuela. For detainees with Venezuelan ID cards were going to be presented. That is what the detainees are saying. They are the ones saying this. Mr. Levy Enrique Lopez Baudiz works for the DEA. The criminals know this. And this person is collaborating in this operation. We receive the information, and we begin to do our job as necessary, successfully. The most important thing for us is that we seized 3,680 kilograms of cocaine, arrested 4 individuals, and have fully identified who sent the drugs and why.
In this context, the Venezuelan authority also reported that 60 tons of drugs have been seized during the year in various operations across the country.
We have already announced that a few days ago, 2 days ago, on Monday morning, a group of citizens were captured in a boat with a significant amount of drugs. In this case, cocaine. All of this is the result of intelligence work that we have been doing for quite some time now, which has allowed us to arrive at this point where 60,070 kilograms of drugs, 60 tons of drugs, have already been seized in various operations this year.
For his part, Venezuela's Minister of Defense, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, announced Wednesday the beginning of the military drill Caribe Soberano 200 in the face of the U.S. threats against national sovereignty. Padrino Lopez informed that the training follows President Nicolás Maduro's guidelines within Operation Independencia 200, which seeks to guarantee peace in the country. He also signaled that the drill are carried out in the face of the increase of the U.S. threats against the Venezuelan people and as a strong show of support for the defense of the nation's sovereignty as well. The military operation is taking place in the Orchila archipelago in the state of La Guaira, with a deployment of air and maritime means of defense, including drones and submarines. The Venezuelan Ministry of Defense also announced the deployment of a surveillance plan to protect the country's fishermen and oil and gas activities.
We are, as is appropriate to our doctrine, increasing our operational readiness in the Caribbean so that our fishermen can have confidence, faith in their work, and in their daily productive tasks, so that all productive activities in Venezuela, including oil and gas, can be carried out in complete peace,
Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez sent letters to 7 international organizations related to commercial fishing, denouncing the illegal and aggressive U.S. assault on a Venezuelan-flagged fishing vessel with a Navy destroyer on September 12, 2025. In the letter, the Venezuelan Vice President pointed out, as you can see, the use of a missile ship and military commando personnel against a civilian fishing vessel is a clearly disproportionate act. It violates the rules and principles governing maritime navigation control operations and undermines the free exercise of fishing activities. It also violates the human rights of the 9 fishermen involved, including the rights to freedom and personal integrity. The letter goes on by saying Venezuela has a long-standing tradition of fishing in the Caribbean Sea, both artisanal and industrial, as well as significant fishing fleet and a solid processing and marketing chain for its product. Therefore, it considers unacceptable that its productive activity and economic development should be hindered by unjustified operations that are clearly contrary to the law. The letter concludes saying, in view of the aforementioned, I appear before you to put on record these serious violations committed by the authorities of the United States of America, and at the same time to request a firm condemnation of this act of aggression against Venezuelan fishermen. All of this in order to protect the rights of fishermen and the lawful exercise of fishing activities. And we stay in Venezuela, where a recent survey applied in the country confirms the popular rejection to a potential foreign military aggression against the Bolivarian nation. Precisely 1,200 interviews conducted by the Venezuelan intelligence agency Interlaces revealed that 93% of Venezuelans disagree with foreign military intervention against the country. Only 5% of those polled agreed with an external military action, while 2% say that they do not know or prefer not to answer. The resounding response obtained demonstrates the national consensus against the refusal of foreign powers to interfere in the nation's sovereignty. And now we have a short break coming up. But first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Let's go now to Cuba, where Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla presented the yearly report on the impact of the U.S. economic, commercial, and financial blockade. The report covers the period from March 1st, 2024 to February 28th, 2025. It demonstrates with numbers the areas affected by the U.S. coercive measures in sectors of social impact, such as economic development, health, and education. The Cuban Foreign Minister added added that in addition to the tangible negative effects, there is a psychological impact that is impossible to quantify. Rodriguez also announced that on October 28th and 29th, the United Nations General Assembly will once again vote on the draft resolution to end the U.S. blockade.
What underlies this reality? 2 months of blockade, 60 days of blockade, equal the cost of fuel to meet the normal electricity demand in this country. The damage from 2 months of blockade is equivalent to 1.6 billion US dollars. If this blockade were to end for 2 months, we would have the resources to guarantee the fuel needed to produce electricity.
Bruno Rodriguez also stated that in the last 12 months, the U.S. strengthening of the economic blockade increased by 49%.
The blockade has caused damages and losses estimated at over 7.5 billion US dollars. Over 7.5 billion. This means that the damage caused by the blockade has increased by 49% compared to the previous period, as a result of the additional measures to strengthen the blockade implemented over the last 12 months. The impact of the blockade compared to the previous year increased by an additional 2.4 billion US dollars.
We go now to Argentina. In a new important setback for Milei's government, the lower chamber of the Congress has just overruled his last 2 presidential vetoes on key financing for education and healthcare. With 181 affirmative votes, the deputies' chamber rejected Milei's veto to the pediatric emergency law, and with 174 votes, they achieved the same result regarding the law that secured more funds for higher education. Both vetoes now go to the Senate, where the final voting will take place, and the result is a hard blow to the libertarian government that piles up legislative and electoral losses weeks before the midterm legislative elections in the country. We go now to live images at this moment right outside the Congress in Buenos Aires, where the lower chamber has just reacted Milei's 2 vetoes. University students, teachers, and also workers are holding a massive march at this hour against the austerity policies of President Javier Milei, as also a way to pressure the legislative power to follow the people's mandate called for by the Argentine University Federation, also the Trade Union Front and the National Inter-University Council. The demonstration has brought together key affected sectors in a joint move to resist government cuts. Let's find out more on these key laws that President Milei had vetoed and also the lower chamber of Congress has just upheld. The university financing law that had been approved by the Senate on August 22nd, 2025 was vetoed by the President on September 10th. The law intends to progressively increase the university budget from 1% of GDP in 2026 to 1.5% in 2031. The objective is to increase funding for public universities, adjust the teaching and non-teaching salaries in line with inflation, also update operating expenses. In addition, the law would provide funds for infrastructure, scholarships, and academic activities. The last chance for the university financing law depends on the 2 chambers of Congress, which could overturn the presidential veto with a 2/3 majority vote from those present. And we move to Paraguay now, where student organizations mobilized in protest against the presence of Argentina's President Javier Milei in the country to participate in the Conservative Action Policy Conference and also to protest against his privatization policies.
One
of the issues we reject at the political level is the policy of adjustment, which is not the solution, is not the way forward, and is not in line with our reality at the national level. And at the level of education, clearly the pursuit of privatization is not a fundamental issue, nor can it be carried out in our country. You are going to encourage a boy from the interior or someone who cannot even access education. We could not accept President Milei's actions, which would be the desire to privatize the National University of Asunción. We are against that, which is why we are mobilizing today.
Meanwhile, in Jamaica, 53-year-old Andrew Holness was sworn in as Prime Minister for the third consecutive time after winning the elections held on September 3rd in the Caribbean country. The ceremony took place at King's House, the government office in Kingston, with the attendance of leaders and heads of state from the Caribbean. During his speech, he referred to the country's culture and sports and promised to build an economy that offers opportunities for all, while committing to making Jamaica the safest society in the Caribbean. It is worth noting that under Holness' leadership, Jamaica has seen a 43% drop in murders so far this year, which represents the most significant decline in decades and is largely attributed to the increase in firearm seizures by the current administration. We have a second short break coming up. Before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Wednesday, at least 45 Palestinians, including 23 from Gaza City, were killed and others were injured in the ongoing Israeli shelling of the Gaza Strip. The Nasser Medical Complex reported that in the Shadi refugee camp at west of Gaza City, 6 Palestinians were killed and others were injured in an Israeli airstrike targeting homes in the camp. The Israeli occupation army has been bombing, invading and sieging for 711 days as part of its expansionist plan to take over Palestinian territory. Following the announcement of a large-scale operation, the occupation army is continuing a military operation with the participation of 2 divisions of its soldiers in Gaza, intensifying ground raids in the north and east of the city in the face of continuous attacks on residential areas and civilian buildings as well. In this regard, the Gazan Ministry of Health has recorded more than 64,964 deaths, while the number of injuries stands at 165,312 since October 7th, 2023. Also, in the last 24 hours, 3 deaths from starvation and malnutrition have been recorded, bringing the total to 425 deaths, including 145 children. In this context, Pope Leo XIV shared on Wednesday a message of solidarity with Palestinians, renewing his call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Let's listen.
I express my deep solidarity with the Palestinian people in Gaza, who continue to live in fear and endure unacceptable conditions. forced once again to leave their lands, before the Almighty Lord who commanded, "Thou shalt not kill," and in the presence of all human history, every person always has an inviolable dignity to respect and preserve. I renew the call for a ceasefire, the release of hostages, a negotiated diplomatic solution, and full respect for international humanitarian law. I invite everyone to join my heartfelt prayer so that a dawn of peace and justice may soon rise.
Affinché sorga presto un'alba di pace.
And on Tuesday, Venezuela held a roundtable titled Palestine Resist, Voices, Stories and Bridges of Solidarity to further denounce the genocide perpetrated by Israel in the Gaza Strip. The discussion took place at the Pueblos Institute for Original Thought, where the leader of the Platform of Solidarity with the Palestinian Cause, Hindu Handri, supported the battle for human rights around the world. The participants called upon the international community not to trivialize evil and to pressure the governments of Israel and the United States to end the genocide that has killed more than 64,000 Palestinians. In this context, the discussion highlighted that the Zionist expansion project is further fueling the flames of fascism and Nazism. Meanwhile, in Uruguay, hundreds demonstrated to demand the national government to break trade relations with Israel. For these protesters mobilized to the Foreign Affairs building to condemn the Zionist genocide on the Gaza Strip. They urged Montevideo to adopt a clear and definitive stand because the one that they are having is not enough according to the seriousness of the conflict. In this regard, they called the government to act internationally to stop crimes against the Palestinian families. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov indicated that European countries have no place at the negotiating table to resolve the Ukrainian war. The head of the Russian diplomacy stated that the West is seeking to join the negotiating table with the intention of inflicting strategic defeat on Moscow. In this regard, the foreign minister pointed out that both Europe and Kiev are seeking to frustrate the peace efforts of U.S. President Donald Trump. Sergei Lavrov also indicated that the Western minority does not understand the geopolitical situation, ignoring the principles of state sovereignty. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported that the armed forces attacked railway infrastructure, storage facilities and drone launching sites on Ukrainian territory. The Russian ministry reported that between Tuesday night and Wednesday, the Ukrainian troops suffered up to 1,500 military casualties, lost a tank and 14 armored combat vehicles, railway infrastructure and a drone depot in 149 strategic areas of Kiev. In addition, the Russian anti-aircraft force shot down approximately 357 Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles over regions of the Federation. These actions take place at a critical stage in Ukraine due to the lack of combat reserves. In other topics, China opened the 12th Xiangshan Forum in Beijing, focusing on the international order and peaceful development. The event began on Wednesday with the presence of delegations from at least 100 countries and the presentation of 6 high-level dialogues focusing on the lessons of the anti-fascist World War for contemporary peace. According to the official agenda, the sessions and high-level dialogues will include topics such as the direction of relations between the great powers and urgent calls for reform in the global governance system. The 3-day meeting aims to protect the international order and promote joint development in the Pacific. And with this information, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also, join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.